were down by 14 heading into the second half. They tied it up in the fourth quarter, but it wouldn't be enough for Buffalo to get the victory. Houston wins this one 23-20. Welcome into Bills Postgame Live alongside of CBS Sports NFL analyst Chris Trapasso. I'm Maddy Glab. Chris, the Bills tie this one up. 3 minutes to go in this game with a field goal. 20-20 is your score. Houston gets the ball and they kept a game-winning 59-yard field goal with just seconds left on the clock. The Bills had a chance with 25 seconds left on the clock, but it goes 3 and out for the offense. When you think about how this game finished, what should they have done differently when they had that last final chance with the ball and 25 seconds left on the clock?
Yeah, I'm the biggest advocate for the Bills being aggressive as long as Josh Allen is the quarterback. It seemed like a kind of a weird situation, though, pinned inside their own 10, no timeouts. The Texans have all 3 of their timeouts. It felt like the Bills were just going to take that to overtime, kind of ride that momentum into the extra session. So maybe, and I'm sure the Bills are thinking this in the locker room right now, maybe just downing it or even running the football to draw some of those timeouts away from the Texans was probably the right way to go here at the end of the game.
A lot to get into with this one because it was really a tale of 2 halves from the first half to the second half for Buffalo on offense and defense. We'll get into all of that. But first, let's hear from some of our coaches and players who are at the podium right now.
Yeah, big shot to the chest and rolled my ankle there. They flagged me for hitting my head, but felt good enough to go back in the game.
First half before the second half, what went wrong in the first half to fall behind?
If you look at it, I mean, we missed by a little bit. Had Mac open early, overthrew him, and then right before the half, too, Dalton running down the seam had a chance and an opportunity there. We were off slightly tonight. That's something I got to clean up, and I'm proud of how we responded in the second half. Got on our horses and gave ourselves a chance to win a football game.
Josh, can you explain the end of the game? You guys are backed up, and you chose to throw it 3 times there without, trying to run some clock there.
Yeah, being aggressive. Coach is going to trust us to go out there and do that. Obviously, would love to convert there, and hindsight's 20/20, but yeah.
Josh, what makes you confident that you have enough playmakers on the outside to get the job done?
Well, it starts with making better decisions on my part, and I know didn't complete the ball at a high rate tonight. Put the ball in harm's way, especially early in that first half. But I trust our guys. I know you guys are going to be wild this week, but love my guys, and we're going to keep working. And, this isn't a defining moment in our season. It's a chance to learn and grow from this, and that's what we're going to do.
This week you didn't take what the defense was giving you. The running backs in the flat seemed to be open a lot. Was there a reason why it didn't go to check down to the guys in the flat?
We'll take a look at that and use that going forward.
Josh, where would you say if we were to go wild as you predicted we would? Why shouldn't we? What do you see that would?
Let's not base all this off of one game. I think our guys have been doing a great job. Early on in the season, finding ways to get open. Joe's been calling it well. And ultimately, it comes down to me executing at a high level, and just didn't do that enough tonight.
Do you think there was a reason you guys weren't able to get open today? Like, did anything stand out to you?
Again, I think ball placement at times, I could give them better chances to go make plays. That's kind of what it comes down to. I got to be better.
So much has been made about the Stephon Diggs storyline this week. Did you feel the weight of that at all going into this game or out there?
No, I mean, I think, I'm not on social media. I don't see any of that. Understand he's on their team. He's a great player. He made some good plays tonight for them, and he was on the winning team. And, it came down to a last-second field goal, and it's something that, we're going to have to learn from and grow from.
Josh, so at the end of the game, I know that you said you guys were being aggressive, but at the same time, should there have been maybe more, I don't want to say conservative, but higher percentage throws? You took 3 basically deep shots. Those are not as high percentages, maybe just something underneath.
Yeah, I mean, again, hindsight 20/20. We can go back and run it 3 times, and who knows what the result is going to be. But that's how it played out.
You've had games in the past where you've had a couple games where things didn't go well, a couple losses in a row. Is there anything about this stretch here that feels familiar in the sense of adds to your belief or maybe any concern about figuring things out?
No, I mean, we got to keep working hard. Good week of practice this week. Learn from this one, wash it, and move on. And that's what we're going to do.
Thanks,
everybody. Thank you guys.
Josh Allen just completing 30% of his passes in this one. Not a completion percentage we see often from QB1, knowing just how talented he is. And Chris, it was interesting to watch this offense from the first half to the second half, because in the first half, it looked like nobody was getting open. The Houston pass rush was really getting after Josh, forcing him to make decisions. Although Josh was holding on to the ball, he had time in the pocket. It was just looking like nobody was open when it comes to wide receivers, tight ends, anybody who is running downfield. Houston did a great job of manning up with Buffalo's offense. Josh said in the press conference, I can do a better job of ball placement. It's on me. I don't know if it's all on Josh. I think you got to spread that around. Sure, Josh could do a better job with ball placement, but the wide receivers can also do a little bit better of a job too. What were your impressions of the offensive struggles in the first half of this game?
Yeah, I mean, Josh starting 1 of 9 for 24 yards. That's something we've never seen before. They said it during the broadcast, his worst start in the NFL. I think what you said there is right, that it was a balance. There was the missed throw that Josh mentioned down the field to Mac Hollins. They tried the seam shot to Dalton Kincaid that was a little bit underthrown, almost intercepted, but there was no one behind Dalton Kincaid. He probably scores if that's a better throw. But in general, in the first half, and really for most of this game, when they showed that all-22 angle or showed behind Josh Allen, there were not a lot of tight ends, running backs, or wide receivers running open. And this wasn't a game, we've seen a few of these type games where the offensive line doesn't really hold up very well, or Josh Allen is under duress a lot, and he does some Superman stuff outside the pocket. Especially in the first half, it didn't really seem like that was the case. He was looking first, second, third read, no one there, got out and run, and a few times it maybe looked like he could have kept the football and relied on his legs. He did that more in the second half, and I think that was part of why the Bills were able to keep some momentum going third and fourth quarters. But I think the offensive struggles, I don't want to say they are solely on the wide receivers' lack of separation, but I do think it's to the point now at 3-2 after back-to-back losses where it is an issue that this offense needs to address.
In the first half, the offense was just averaging 3.2 yards per play, quite a low number. If you look at targets versus receptions, Keon Coleman was targeted 5 times, had 1 reception. Dalton Kincaid targeted 6 times, had 2 receptions. Mac Hollins targeted 6 times, had 2 receptions. So you see the miscommunication between receiver, quarterback, again, not putting all of the blame on one party or another, but putting it on the entire offense, really, especially in the first half. What did you see change in the second half? Because they come out of the locker room and they score on back-to-back drives to start the second half.
What was so big when in the first half the score is 14-3, and it kind of felt like the Bills, and maybe this is a little bit of Joe Brady having those growing pains and learning just the game flow like we saw last week with the trick play. He kind of fessed up to that being the wrong call. I thought early in this game, even in the second quarter down 14-3, they kind of abandoned the run. It worked so well on the second drive where they got the field goal, and then they were just coming out in spread, empty sets, obvious passing scenarios where we saw in the third quarter and fourth quarter with the Ty Johnson big run to start the third quarter. James Cook really got going as well, scored the touchdown. They probably abandoned the run a little bit too early, and that's coming from me, someone that is always thinking the Bills should lean on Josh Allen. But when you're running the ball well on the road, it keeps you out of third and longs. It keeps the crowd out of it. When you have a dynamic back that has the low 4.4 speed like James Cook does, all it takes is one perfectly blocked play for him to hit that big splash play that this offense really needs. So I think first half to second half, better running, a little bit better balance, and Josh Allen, again, leaned on his legs when he couldn't find anyone open.
James Cook finished with 20 attempts for 82 rushing yards, averaged 4.1 yards per carry. Ty Johnson, 3 attempts for 15 yards. That's 5 yards a carry. So maybe it would have been a different story if they would have continued to lean on those running backs and James Cook and Ty Johnson. Let's flip it over to the defense and get into this week's Player Spotlight. This week's Player Spotlight is presented by Microsoft Surface. Microsoft Surface is the official tablet and sideline technology of the Buffalo Bills. We are highlighting one of the rookie defensive players. It's defensive tackle Dwayne Carter for the job that he did. A big opportunity for this defensive tackle today without Ed Oliver and Austin Johnson in the lineup. It was Carter's time to shine. He finished with 3 tackles, 1 for loss. Chris, why did he impress you today?
His burst off the snap was what we saw at Duke and was probably the reason why the Bills picked him where they did on day 2 in this draft. And this is someone very quickly. I mean, we're still in October. This is someone that during training camp and the preseason, DaQuan Carter's playing with a second and third team. Up the field, first step quickness, power through blocks. We talked about it during the game that a lot of these rookies, I think it takes them time to understand just how assertive you have to be to beat blockers. It takes you maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe it takes your entire rookie season. In this game, the combination of first step quickness and just that really aggressive block shedding ability, I think is why DaQuan Carter had a really good game where the Bills really needed it and played great in that third and fourth quarter against a lot of those interior runs of the Texans.
Carter was involved in a lot of plays. You saw his jersey number in the pileups at the line of scrimmage. He's someone through the beginning of the season, from the beginning of the season, our head coach Sean McDermott would say DaQuan Carter, he is somebody who's got to learn, he's got to step up, he's got to be involved because we expect him to be in that defensive line rotation. Remember, Buffalo's defensive line likes to rotate quite a bit. That's a big ask of a rookie and a big ask from Sean McDermott. Not saying that it's a bad ask, but McDermott is usually someone when it comes to rookies is willing to wait for a rookie to be able to learn his way, to try and learn in the system before really being rolled out. But from the jump, McDermott definitely said, DaQuan Carter is a player who we believe is smart enough, is capable enough, is talented enough to get out there and perform right away because we also need him in the lineup. So it was nice to see a rookie like him impress in this one.
Yeah, and the Texans only ran for 3.4 yards per carry, so they did a great job, especially in the second half when the Texans had that bigger lead, tried to kind of milk the clock a little bit. Those interior runs, it was really DaQuan Jones and a rookie who, again, 2 months ago was playing in fourth quarters of preseason games. So for Sean McDermott to kind of call him out a little bit early in the season, late in camp, for him to show up in this big moment, Bills don't get the win today, but it's a good sign for, like you mentioned, they like to rotate 6, 7, 8, 9 guys deep. It's not just about late in games. I always say it's in the fourth quarter of games and in the fourth quarter of the season. So a very bright spot from DaQuan Carter in a pretty key moment for this Bills defensive line.
Let's continue with the defensive line. Defensive tackle DaQuan Jones is in the locker room right now answering questions from reporters. Let's hear what he had to say.
Great, but we did what we had to do in the second half to come back and make it a game, and we have to win those.
How much pride is there for the way this defense did stiffen up in the second half for the most part?
I mean, a lot. I mean, we knew that people were going to try to do draws and screens after the last week, and I mean, that's all they kept doing. They kind of moved the ball. I mean, other than that, when they tried to run it, we stuffed it, and so we just got to make sure we do a better job early on of reacting to the screens better and be able to chase those down and make those plays early on.
How many positives can you take from this?
Oh, a lot. I mean, just from the first couple drives of getting a couple 3-and-outs, and I really like how we played in the run game up front, and do we had to do there to make it one-dimensional, but at the same time we didn't do enough to kind of get them out of that two-dimensional offense late in the game, and we just got to make sure we go back and hammer our keys on that.
I think they ended up going 8 for 15 on third downs. How much of a gut punch is it when you just can't get off the field on third?
I mean, yeah, we pride ourselves on getting off the field on third down, and it's something we have to continue to focus on and get better at that, and see why we're not doing that.
The last play there that they were able to get, I think it was 5 yards, moved them into position for the field goal attempt. What was maybe the strategy there? What were you attempting to do?
That's a Bobby question. Situational stuff, and he probably answered better than I can.
Mm-hmm. Just if you could, I mean, just the emotions of watching that kick after what the defense had been able to do, in the second half to give yourselves a chance.
Yeah, like I say, you're pissed off, you're frustrated. You just gotta figure out ways to close out these games, these tough games, and this is what playoff football is down the road, and you have to figure out how to get those games in the W column.
The defense kept this offense in this game, including in the first half when the Bills were down 17-3. It could have been worse, but the defense did their job. Heading into the second half, in the third and fourth quarter, the defense played a lot more physical. Mm-hmm. They were able to force a couple of turnovers, and within that, you saw the defensive line and you saw the linebackers, the second level, start to blitz more, get more pressure on Houston's quarterback, C.J. Stroud. Going into this game, Stroud was blitzed on just 14% of his dropbacks. That's the lowest rate in the NFL. The Bills end up blitzing Stroud 22% of the time. Much of this happened in the second half, so you're able to see why the Bills were able to get some takeaways and come out looking stronger. Why do you think they started to blitz more in the second half?
Well, I think for as good as C.J. Stroud is, he's still a really young quarterback. He's played a fair amount of football. Ohio State last year, wins the Offensive Rookie of the Year. But when you can speed up the process for any quarterback, I mean, maybe once in a while and maybe on a few of those third downs, he finds the answer in a hurry. But a lot of those situations, he's not understanding, oh, this is where I need to go with the football because the blitz is coming from this way. You saw it on the Terrel Bernard interception that they took away that first read. They're sending a blitzer. He realizes, I got to be kind of quicker with this throw. On the strip sack from DaQuan Jones where he kind of just bumped into the football, same thing where the Bills really rotated well. They used some simulated pressures. You have to be more aggressive when you're down. And I think what you said, the defensive front, we talked about the rotational depth. Rousseau got involved with pressures. Dwayne Smoot with the strip sack. Obviously, Dwayne Carter, DaQuan Jones. They really, even with four, and then you bring in a hammer like Dorian Williams or Terrel Bernard that can really slip through the cracks. I think maybe this is Bobby Babbich's place to learn and say, maybe I should be a little bit more aggressive in those third and long situations.
You spoke about the simulated pressures. We saw a lot of that in the first half. Can a defense use simulated pressures to set up blitzes later on in the game?
100%. And like I just said, I obviously haven't watched the All-22 film yet, but it felt like a lot of those simulated pressures where C.J. Stroud did have the answers in the first half, the Bills were able to kind of play off those and run those later in the game where Stroud understood, hey, I need to throw it here. He looks there, and there's Terrel Bernard underneath a crossing route for the interception. Or sometimes, like I mentioned, it's just holding onto the football. That extra third of a second can be the difference between a completion or a sack and a fumble. So the Bills really do mix it up really well. And I think what DaQuan Jones said, it's not fun to, or it's frustrating for the Bills to lose this game. It's week 5, back-to-back losses in the AFC against, those teams that you kind of feel like you're going to be facing in the playoffs, battling for playoff positioning. But I do think the Bills can take something from this. And that last week, the offense couldn't really get it going. But for this game on the road in what looked like it was going to be another blowout, for the defense and the offense to do just enough to be right there at the end. So many new players. Cole Bishop's first game starting. Dwayne Carter's really coming out party. I really think the Bills can take a lot from this game because adversity like this will strike again throughout the season. And if the Bills get to the playoffs, the same thing will occur. You'll be in those critical moments where now these younger players or some of these new players on the roster will have had this experience, maybe even on the road. So I think that DaQuan Jones didn't seem too upset or too frustrated being that wily veteran. I think that was a smart thing for him to say.
Houston scores 17 points in the first half. They add just another 6 onto that in the second half, so you can see the difference there in the points scored. You spoke of the safety, Cole Bishop. They targeted him early. Everybody knew going into this game, this is this kid's first NFL start. You're putting him out there. It's just how the NFL works. He is going to get picked on defense. How do you think Bishop settled in after being picked on early?
I think he settled in really well. I mean, I'm pretty sure he gave up the long touchdown. It kind of felt like Rasul Douglas was playing kind of the outer third deep coverage, and Cole Bishop was really supposed to be down the middle and kind of got caught peeking in to the pocket and watching C.J. Stroud, and that big shot play over the top was able to get hit behind him. After that, though, the Texans really had a hard time generating any big plays, even at the 15 to 20 yard range. So I think after that, learning the positioning of the back seven, I think, in Sean McDermott's defense is huge. To me, that's why Terrel Bernard was able to really break out last season, come back from the pectoral strain, make a huge play in the fourth quarter. It wasn't necessarily the most athletic play or that he was super fast to the football. It was he understands where I need to be and where I probably can get that interception or at least get my hand on the football. So for Cole Bishop, to not continually get picked on, I think is a really good sign. We know that this Sean McDermott defense, it's time-tested. It's very confusing for offenses. They do a lot of different things. You saw it early on with Bishop, but I think after that, his positioning was seemingly very good because no big plays down the field after that.
You said the defense can be confusing for opposing offenses. Well, if you're a rookie learning this system, it can also be confusing. We heard from defensive coordinator Bobby Babich earlier this year, and he said, I like to put stress on these rookies. It is stressful in their first season in the system because we want to put a lot on them. We want them to learn. We want them to grow so that come their second and third season, it clicks and they're able to move fast. They're able to play physical. They're able to get after the quarterback and get takeaways. You see that in our second and third year players and guys like linebackers Dorian Williams and Terrel Bernard. First year, trying to feel it out. Second and third year, you are difference makers.
Yeah, and Bobby Babich having his experience with the linebackers and the safeties, you can go even back to Matt Milano, that he was kind of flying all over the place, out of control player early on, made a few plays. By year 2, by year 3, he looked like maybe the best player on the defense. I think Dorian Williams is playing with a lot more quicker reaction to the plays. That was really the difference between Williams and Bernard, and it was that year of experience that Bernard had on Dorian Williams. Last year, they talked about, hey, he's got such an understanding of this defense. Dorian Williams more of just a, hey, run ball or see the ball, go get the ball. Right. It feels like this season he understands, all right, I can use my speed, I can use my aggression, but I need to understand where I probably should be on the specific play, and I totally agree. We'll probably see that growth from a guy like Cole Bishop, who has all the talent in the world. I mean, sub 4.5 speed, was all over the field at Utah in multiple roles, but this is one of the most complex defenses in the NFL. It probably will take some time, but usually, and you can look at, again, a lot of these players that we already mentioned, the stats, the production really get backed up by the development that a lot of these younger players that weren't necessarily first-round picks or were high-priced free agents, you could even go Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, they ultimately get when they buy in and fully understand their responsibilities in the defense.
And you can learn in practice, but it's another thing to learn in the game. And maybe the first game or the second game aren't going to be pretty, but with more time on task, with more opportunities in live game reps, the more that you learn, the more that you grow, the more that you develop, and then you start making those game-changing plays, which I think we would expect soon enough from a safety like Cole Bishop, just knowing what he did at Utah in college. This week's game at the Texans is presented by Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the NFL. We are awaiting head coach Sean McDermott on the podium. Before we hear from him, let's hear from another one of our defensive players.
What happened last week, and now it's 20-3, third quarter, the place is loud. What changed for you guys? How did you guys turn this around, at least to get it to where you did?
I think just settling in. Starting off, we didn't start off, the way we wanted to. Gave up a couple big plays there, and like I said, we came in, took a deep breath, got back to doing what we do, and we were able to get out there, calm down a little bit, and just go play. I think that was a huge testament to who we are as a team. That we've been in those situations and we've fought our way back. Now I think the next step is not to get in those situations. So doing everything we can to start fast and to get on a good start. So we're not playing from behind.
Take us through the emotions of climbing your way back into a game and then having it on that way.
Yeah, I mean it sucks. It sucks to lose any game. But especially when you come back, you fight all the way through. I feel like we had good momentum going into the second half, into the fourth quarter there. But it's the NFL, man. It's a tough league, and we can't put ourselves in those situations early. But like I said, it shows the character and the heart of this team that regardless of the situation, we're gonna go out there and fight, and keep fighting till the game's over. So. Proud of the guys. Like I said, we got to start better. We'll go back and work on what we need to get worked on. But proud of the guys who play hard.
Seemingly you had them in a lot of favorable third down situations. They were able to convert. I mean, some of that is Stroud just being a darn good quarterback. But what in particular has to improve on third downs to get off the field more often?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, man, they're a good team. They got a good quarterback, good receivers, good running backs. And they're going to convert sometimes. Obviously, in those third and medium, third and longer situations, we want to get off the field every single time. I think executing in the back end and coverage, whether that means plastering receivers, anticipating routes a little bit, and just playing to our technique and our fundamentals, man. I think that's a huge part of it. that's a point of emphasis for us that we've focused on and are trying to get better at, and something that we'll continue to get better at. And, it's a known thing for us to get better in those situations.
Terrell, what were you trying to do on the last play before the field goal?
So I was really thinking to keep the back up, to keep the clock running. Obviously, they had timeouts to use, scrambled around a little bit, and then ended up dumping it down late. So I was kind of sitting back there, just hoping that we would keep them up and keep them, the clock burning. I think they ended up getting the timeout with 2 seconds left. So, tough situation. Is what it is, man. We'll learn from it and get better.
It seems like a next to impossible situation. You almost can't allow any yards, and they have timeouts. So, I mean, how do you go about trying to do anything there?
Yeah, I think the main thing was just defending what we thought their line was. I feel like we did a pretty good job of that. They took it down, got 5 yards maybe, but just making sure we didn't give up an explosive play and make the field goal easier. I don't know how far it ended up being, but we held them to a 5-yard gain. They had, I don't know, it was 9 seconds or 7 seconds, whatever it was, and then made them make the field goal, and the kicker made it. So it is what it is.
Dorian looked like he was flying around in this one. Are you seeing that in him?
Yeah, Dorian's gotten better every single week. Like you said, he's flying around, making plays, communicating, executing his job, and he's been finding the ball too. I think that's his second fumble recovery already this year. So he's been getting better every single week. Proud of him, and we're going to keep working to get better.
Thanks for
Thank you guys.
Bernard missed the last 2 games with a pectoral injury. This is his first game back, and he was flying all over the place. He had that huge 4th down stop, was involved in that huge 4th down stop, I should say, in the second quarter. And if you freeze frame the play, he is flying over the top of a pile of players to help stop the play before it was able to go over the line and turn into a 1st down. He also gets an interception in this one as well. The pec injury was not bothering this player in this game. It speaks to just how tough he is. It speaks to how talented he is. This defense really missed the middle guy, the captain, the guy who wears the green dot.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of what I said earlier with Terrel Bernard, that not only understanding where he needs to be and how he can confuse a quarterback on a play action or not bite on a play action, but get everyone else lined up to make that heady play, to know that DaQuan Jones and Dwayne Carter are going to go low on that 4th and 1, and then he can go over the top. He was like parallel to the ground, 4 feet in the air. Those little things, I think the fluidity is there, the speed is pretty good, but up here mentally he understands not only this defense and his responsibility in it, but everyone else and how they all kind of gel together. One thing I want to say, too, about what Terrel Bernard said there in the locker room, they get down big last week, ends up being the first blowout that the Bills have suffered since 2021. Looks like it's going to be the same thing in this game. The Bills' defense, and I know the offense was not pretty, but they did just enough to get this game tied on the road against, I think, a borderline elite level quarterback that was really cooking in the first half. I think shows a lot of resolve for this team, for so many new pieces. We talked about it all offseason. New wide receivers, no Stephon Diggs, so many pieces on defense. I know Steve's been big on that he thought the defense was going to take a little bit longer to get there. So to not think, oh man, this is going to be another blowout against a good team, and to really hunker down against the run, make plays, get off the field on some 3rd downs. The 2 turnovers were huge. The defensive line played better. And Terrel Bernard and Dorian Williams, I think, are really emerging as leaders on this team that have a good kind of complementary skill set of the headiness and the sheer explosion and physicality of Dorian Williams. It was just good to see that resolve early on that could have kind of fallen off the wagon and been, man, 2 back-to-back blowouts, Ravens and Texans. That ultimately was not the case.
A team figures out their identity in the first 6 weeks of a season, especially if this team has a lot of new faces on it. It could take longer than 6 weeks to figure out who you truly are. This team, the Bills, they have a lot of new faces on offense and defense, like you said, and it's games like this where it gets tight In the third and fourth quarter, you have a chance to come back, you tie things up, and in that comeback, you look at each other and you start to figure out, who are we when our backs are against the wall? Who do we want to become? What do we want to be known for? And this team was able to scratch, claw, bite their way back into this game, tied up 20-20 with just a few minutes left in the fourth quarter. It'll be interesting to hear from both coordinators about the final 3 minutes of this game, which I'm sure they would have loved to have had back, or maybe change a few things to finish this one out with a victory instead of a close game that turned into a loss.
Yeah, this reminded me a lot of that 2021 game in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers. They were down 24-3 at the half. Tom Brady and Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette were really rolling. They were actually down 27-10 in the start of the fourth quarter of that game. Same thing, a couple turnovers, a couple third downs where the Bills defense gets off the field. Josh Allen leads them all the way back. They ultimately lose in overtime in that game. So this is something that I think you're not going to win every single tight game like this. Usually the coin flip games are going to be about 50-50. I mean, some of the really good teams can win these one-score or three-point games 60-70%, but in general, you're going to blow out teams when you're really good. You're not going to lose many games by a lot, and these 3-point, 4-point, 5-point, 6-point games, they're going to be 50-50. So I think this is a team that, again, showed what's really has been the trademark during the Sean McDermott era that I mentioned to you while we were watching together. The halftime adjustments, what you just said, I want to hear from Bobby Babich and Joe Brady, because maybe the offense didn't really click it into high gear, but the defense totally clamped down on an offense where C.J. Stroud started like 10 for 10, and it looked like he was going to throw for 500 yards, and the Texans were going to score 50 points, was utterly confused in the second half, only 3.4 yards on the ground after the big explosion from Derrick Henry last week. So the halftime adjustments, I think the Bills and some of these new guys can understand, look, even if we don't get off to the best start, whether it's offense or defense, this coaching staff that's a very veteran group can keep us in games where we can have a chance to win with Josh Allen, and maybe the run game that they can lean on to ultimately be close to have a chance to win late in pretty much any game.
This Buffalo Bills team scored over 30 points in 3 straight weeks to start the season. Then they get served a little dose of humble pie, scored just 10 points against the Ravens last week, now 20 points against the Houston Texans. As we see this team progress through the season, it's early, but who is this offense? What are we learning about this Bills offense through 5 weeks?
Well, I think they said it during the broadcast. Charles Ayers mentioned it, that when you have Khalil Shakir, you kind of have that steady, reliable force that Josh Allen has the connection with. You know, can talk about the catch rate and that it was at a league high last year. He had some NFL record of most targets in a row catching the football, like in NFL history since they started tracking targets in 1991. To not have him in this game, I think you were hoping that someone would really step up. You see the long catch and run from Keon Coleman on the comeback route on that 4th and 5 in the second half. That was a great play. But like Josh mentioned, that Dalton Kincaid just missing a few catches. Mac Hollins not really tracking the football as well as he probably should as a starting receiver in the NFL. I think they are looking for their identity when Khalil Shakir is not on the field. Are they a quick game team? Are they going to try to just stretch it deep? Are they going to really run the football? I think, if anything, to give you an answer, they run the football pretty well. There's been almost every game. I mean, they got out of the game script last week being down by a lot to Baltimore. But James Cook, even between the tackles, maybe you're not going to get that 4 to 6 yard run every time, but even if he gets stuffed 2 yards, 3 yards, then he breaks off a 15-yarder and a 10-yarder. So I think the offensive line as a whole, the run game has been really good. And in general, Josh Allen outside of the pocket has still been the Josh Allen that we're really accustomed to.
You mentioned earlier that you would have liked to have seen the offense stick to the run a little bit more through this one.
Second quarter mostly.
Last week, James Cook had nine rushes for 39 yards, 4.3 average. We heard from offensive coordinator Joe Brady after the game on Monday afternoon. Brady said, I should have stuck to the run a little bit more. That's something going back I wish I would have done. It'll be interesting to hear if he believes the same coming out of a game like this.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like in that Thursday night game against the Dolphins, which certainly the Bills dominated that game, the Tua injury, but they were dominating on defense to begin with. So it kind of set up to run the football, but that was a game where Josh Allen didn't really have to do anything. They were running the football, running it well. James Cook has the long touchdown run in that game. they just kept with it. And I think maybe that's something that Joe Brady needs to understand to kind of go back to your last question, to maybe not go into a game and say, this is our identity, but to say, all right, we have a game plan. If it works at the beginning, whether it's being pass heavy, whether it's featuring the short game or play action or going deep, if it's working, stick to it. And if it is running the football, yes, it is taking the ball out of the best player on the team's hands in Josh Allen. But if that's working, then maybe you don't abandon it. Or if you get into a little bit of a hole like they did today, 14-3, but the run game was looking pretty good, you don't necessarily have to panic, because for as bad as the offense played, for as inefficient as we've seen Josh Allen in this passing offense the last 5 to 7 years, they were still in this game because of what the defense can do. I think maybe Joe Brady needs to understand a little better that it's truly complementary football, and the defense is good enough and will continue to get better with these younger players getting more experience, where he doesn't have to panic early on if the run game is actually working well.
That made me think of a game last year when Joe Brady had already took over the play calling duties. It was the Cowboys game where the Bills won 31-10. You go into a game thinking they're going to be able to stop the run. They've got a really good defense. Maybe they're going to have to throw the ball a bunch because we've got Josh Allen and we've got some star-studded wide receivers like Stephon Diggs. Well, the Bills have so much success on the ground in that game that they had 266 total rushing yards. James Cook finished with 179 rushing yards and a touchdown, averaged 7.2 yards per carry. Coming out of the game, a lot of reporters, including myself, complimented Brady for the fact that he didn't have to stick to the game plan. He probably threw away the game plan and just stuck with the run because that's what was working. So Brady has done this before. He has said goodbye to the play sheet, let's say, to stick to what is working on offense.
Yeah, and I think the elephant in the room, too, is in a game like today's game in Houston, and maybe you could look at the last 2 weeks now where the pass game is just a little discombobulated, where Curtis Samuel doesn't know that there's a screen going to him. There's a slant on an RPO that hits Keon Coleman in the helmet. He doesn't realize it's a pass play. The passing offense was not clicking. So if your run game is working well and you can't really lean on the pass game, it's one thing if you're like, man, we could drop back with Josh Allen and maybe throw for 400 yards in this game, when it feels like the vibe of the game is not going to be one where Josh Allen and this passing offense really take off. Maybe that's, again, where Joe Brady early in the season and in his first full season as an offensive coordinator says, look, we wanted to come out. We thought we could exploit some matchups in the secondary outside of Derek Stingley in this game, but we're actually running it really well. Maybe we do what we did in that Cowboys game. I also think, too, that Philadelphia Eagles game in the rain last year, there was a touchdown drive in the third or fourth quarter when the Bills were mounting that comeback and building that lead, where I think I was astonished by the fact that they went down the field. There was like 5 Latavius Murray runs, 4 James Cook runs. I don't think Josh Allen threw a pass, and it was rainy like the Cowboys game, and they scored a touchdown on that. And I was like, man, if the Bills can do that, then they're really going to be very tough to stop offensively. So for as much as you can plan everything, it is different, like you're saying, once you're in the line of fire and the game's happening, and maybe it's just not working, that to lean on either side of your offense, whether it's the run game or the pass game. And that's something that, again, Joe Brady's second straight week, a very good lesson to be learned for him as an offensive coordinator.
And in the first 3 weeks of the season, this was a team who was a little bit more run-heavy than pass-heavy. In the last few years, they're about even when you look at numbers compared to rushing attempts versus passing attempts. This is known for being a pass-heavy offense in the last few seasons. But if you really look at the numbers, they're pretty close to being even. Heading into this season in the first 3 games, like I said, they were a little bit more run-heavy than pass-heavy. The last 2 games, they've evened it out a little bit more, not as much of a difference between the run and the pass. Going into this game, Josh Allen had a 121.8 passer rating against man coverage that ranked 4th best in the NFL. We look at the wide receivers in this game, their inability to get open on several different situations, plays. It just looked really hard for Josh Allen to find answers down the field. And when wide receivers were targeted, they didn't catch all of those targets. When you look at how Houston went about creating a plan to stop the wide receivers, Why do you think man defense worked in this game versus others this season?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that is a perfect segue from what we just said, that going into the game, Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks against man coverage at 120-plus passer rating. So going into this game, the Bills likely felt, hey, DeMeco Ryans, the defensive-minded head coach in Houston, they're going to run a lot of man. You mentioned to me during the game, that they were like 6th highest man coverage rate. So the Bills probably felt good. Hey, we have Josh Allen. We like Joe Brady. We understand what the Texans are going to run. A quarter or 2 quarters in, maybe at halftime, you realize man coverage is not working in this game, whether it's just individual matchups or the scheme or the Texans were ready for it. That's when, again, maybe you say, let's dial it back a little bit, call some more run plays, get Josh Allen bootlegged out, which he did run the football a little bit more in the second half. That's, again, where those in-game adjustments. I think on defense, you have more experienced guys like Bobby Babich, obviously Sean McDermott, that are probably a little bit better at making those halftime adjustments. But, again, a great learning experience for Joe Brady. And I just think this Bills team without Khalil Shakir, who's super quick, savvy, sudden. It's not a group that's going to win a lot of those man coverage reps with intricate routes like they did with John Brown and Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs. Can you win down the field? Can you win the back shoulders? Can you win on comebacks? Sure, and the Bills did that a little bit in this game. But I think besides getting schemed open, it's going to be a little bit harder for this team offensively on a consistent basis to just get guys wide open, isolated in their one-on-one matchups.
I mean, your man beater on this team is wide receiver Khalil Shakir, and he was not a part of today's lineup. He leads the NFL right now with a 95 catch rate.
It's insane.
95 catch percentage rate. It's because he's able to beat the guy that's on him, and Josh has the ultimate amount of trust in a receiver like that. It's somebody who Allen has worked with several years now, and he's comfortable with throwing him the ball when there's people on him, and he believes that he can get open in those zones.
Here's what I'll say, too, that I think the NFL in general is a zone league. Like, even the highest man coverage teams are going to be like 35 to 40 to 45% of the time running man. Why I think teams early in this season, especially the last 2 weeks, Ravens and Texans, have said, hey, look, we're going to play man, maybe just because we don't feel like they have these quick separators. But when you're playing zone against Josh Allen, that means your entire defensive back seven is watching Josh Allen trying to close a window in a hurry. What's the one thing that Josh Allen has, probably better than any other quarterback in the league outside of Patrick Mahomes? A strong arm. So you can have 2 defenders in a zone, and whether it's Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox or whoever it is, Josh Allen can see that. They can all know the ball is going here, and Josh Allen can throw a 70-mile-per-hour pass that gets fit in there. So I think you don't want to necessarily play a ton of man, because then when the backs are turned, Josh Allen can run. And we all saw it watching it in that first half that maybe he probably should have took off a little more. But don't be surprised if there's more man coverage, because against zone, the Mahomes and the Allens of the world, those two really have the velocity, the arm strength to fit through tight windows against zone. It's just not a good coverage to play. So I think the blueprint has kind of been set. We'll see how defenses continue to play these Bills receivers, and now how the Bills adjust their offensive scheme.
More often than not, it's hard for a defense to play at a high level in man, because you usually don't have
the
2
athletes.
corners, 2 safeties, a few linebackers that can match up with athletic receivers and tight ends and cover them and limit their ability to make plays. That was the case tonight. I mean, you've got Derek Stingley back there. Lassiter is not a bad corner either. They've had some talented safeties. So they were capable of doing that tonight, because look at Josh Allen's stat line. 9 of 30 for 131 passing yards. He completes just 30% of his passes. I can't remember the last time I saw a number that low for a quarterback like Josh Allen in his 7-year career now in the NFL. As we get into this week, Chris, what is our tight ends coach, Rob Boris, and our wide receivers coach, Adam Henry, telling these playmakers coming off of this type of game where it was hard to make plays?
So I think it's so much, and this is kind of goes back to my scouting roots, that so much of it is winning off the line of scrimmage. You always hear about rookies, and I think Keon Coleman is a prime example of this, that Keon Coleman is not someone that, again, is going to run intricate routes like a Stephon Diggs, like a Cole Beasley, but rookies usually struggle beating press at the line of scrimmage. If you can just win there with your footwork, with juke to the inside, then you go to the outside with your hands, you can usually have the leg up in the route. So I think working on that first is vital. And even for someone like Matt Collins, who is a veteran, but maybe besides the one season in Atlanta, has never really been in this much of a full-time role where he's seeing as much press coverage in his face at the line of scrimmage. So I think working on releases is really vital. And it's not necessarily those position coaches, but if Josh Allen doesn't like what he sees, just presenting an early run of 7 yards where he scrambles, it takes one of the defenders off the field where there's that quarterback spy, where that linebacker is not in coverage. That helps the numbers game. But even just getting that into the heads of the guys on defense where they're trying to cover in man, but oh wait, there's Josh Allen running to my right, I think really instills like a fear in these defenses early on. So getting off the line of scrimmage and Josh Allen not being afraid to run early on, I think it will be key against the Jets team that is going to play a lot of man coverage. So it'll be 3 weeks in a row where the Bills have now seen it, they've practiced against it, they've played against it, where they will see, I don't want to say heavy like they're going to run it 90% of the time, but more of a man coverage heavy team in the New York Jets on Monday night.
When you look at Keon Coleman, this is a receiver who, coming out of college football, was known for and is still known for being a physical wide receiver. He's got a big body, he's got a tall frame, he can beat guys at the line of scrimmage with those releases, and he can get up and toughen a guy out body him for a ball, a 50-50 ball thrown his direction. Josh Allen several times has spoken about this rookie wide receiver in Keon Coleman with he impresses me because of his IQ with the releases that he has off of the line of scrimmage. So maybe this is something that is just it's going to reveal itself more and more as we go throughout the NFL season. Him being a rookie, getting pressed, getting guarded tightly, needing to work on those releases. Maybe it's something that we see kind of bloom, blossom, open up as we go through the NFL.
Yeah, one last
season.
thing that to kind of go back to your last question, which tying in Keon Coleman, I'm going to mention he's not going to separate very quickly off the line or down the field. You can get him the ball early, kind of like getting like an early layup in a game where you have a drag route where we saw Matt Collins make the one play. It makes sense to maybe try to get him involved on a pick route where he doesn't necessarily have to win in isolation. You can get him the football in a schemed up manner where it's not, hey, all we're going to use him for is back shoulder and a comeback route on the outside. Get him some confidence, build some rapport between Keon Coleman and Josh Allen in different ways. He's not, again, super agile, but you can, in a straight line or running across the field on a deep over route, go balls, post routes, try to get him involved on some easier throws. Again, I would love to see him even on some wide receiver screens. I mean, he returned punts at Florida State, so he has that ability with the ball in his hands. I don't necessarily think the Bills need to go into every game and say, all right, second drive, we're going to throw a back shoulder. That's really not 50-50 with how good these guys are in man coverage in the NFL. Get him some easy completions to build his confidence. And again, the connection that he has with Josh Allen will be vital for this team going forward. So maybe try to scheme him up a little bit.
We got a peek at that because he had that 49-yard catch and run touchdown that Josh Allen tossed down the field. He caught on the sideline.
Exactly.
He was able to skirt himself up the sideline into the end zone to make it just a 3-point game in the third quarter. Coleman was in the locker room after the game, so let's hear what he had to say.
It was nothing they was doing. It was all self-inflicted. Mostly on me, communication, getting the call and doing what I need to do.
Tell me about your touchdown play. The play that was called and what happened on the play.
Simple play call. Attacking, get the play single high, take the matchup outside, they play too high, read it outside in, and simple stop route. Get my body, sticks, be physical, catch. Mac and Dawson made some good blocks downfield, got in the end zone.
Josh put a lot of it on himself just now, saying that he's got to be better with ball placement. From your perspective, what do you think needs to be better for the offense to kind of execute more consistently?
Everybody just doing their 111. Everybody doing what they need to do, blocking, catching, receiving the ball, and just making plays.
At halftime, Sean McDermott told the sideline reporter, "Our team needs to be better on first downs." In the first half of this game, they were getting themselves into second and long, third and long. They had 3 3-and-outs in the first half and just 103 total yards. The offense made some halftime adjustments that did work for them. How are they able to get into more favorable down and distances?
They were taking some of those easy, high completion throws where at that point, being in a hole, the Texans, or having the Bills in a hole, the Texans were playing it seemingly a little bit softer, where they were giving you the 5-yard completion, the 6-yard completion. And again, I don't want to sound like I want the Bills to run the ball 50 times a game with Josh Allen, but they ran the football and got to 2nd and 5, and then 3rd and 2, and then the whole playbook is wide open. So I think getting back to what was working in the first half and staying away simultaneously from what wasn't working, trying to throw the football down the field against a Derek Stingley, against a Jimmy Ward, Kalen Bullock, the 3rd-round pick out of USC, has great range as a free safety. Maybe hasn't made a ton of plays yet. I think he has 1 interception on the season. That really wasn't working for this offense. So I think leaning on the run, even being down, was fine, because you know that in the NFL, with timeouts and the way that this Bills defense can play, one of those deficits can really be erased in a hurry like it was in this game.
Last week, the Bills were 3 of 13 on 3rd down. This week, it's a little bit worse, 3 of 14 on 3rd down. This might be a similar answer to what I just got, but specifically on 3rd down, what can this offense do to get some more wins? Because going back to last year, this is a team where 3rd down, it wasn't a bugaboo. It seems like it is an issue here to start the season, especially in the last 2 games.
It definitely is. And how about Curtis Samuel? I mean, we were all kind of calling for it heading into this game, kind of realizing that Khalil Shakir wasn't going to play, and then getting that official news later in the week. We're talking about all these guys who can't separate. Curtis Samuel is a low 4.3 guy. He's 27 years old. He's worked with Joe Brady. Now, maybe going into this season, Brady envisioned this kind of Isaiah McKenzie role where he's going to catch balls out of the backfield. They're going to use him as a running back at times. In Washington, and before that with Brady in Carolina, this was someone that really could win on the inside or on the outside, despite not being very big, because he is sudden. He does have that dynamic athleticism to create separation, which seems to be the biggest problem with the Bills receiver group at this point. So I think unless he's still hurt from that turf toe injury, but I don't want to say fully changing his role in this offense, but maybe Joe Brady needs to understand that this is a player that could really solve our biggest problem in Curtis Samuel. Whether Shakir's out for multiple weeks or it was just a one-game thing, they have these bigger bodies that are struggling getting open. Samuel has the athletic skill set, again, in isolation, to get open. And I think on 3rd downs, to find those quick hitters, or you throw it just short of the sticks, someone makes a guy miss, they fall forward, get the first down. That can be Curtis Samuel kind of in tandem with Khalil Shakir in this offense.
Curtis Samuel was targeted 4 times in today's game, just caught 1 catch for 0 yards. He's somebody who, when he was with Joe Brady, he had career highs in receptions, receiving yards, rushing yards. They used him as like a Swiss Army knife, which is how they want to treat him in this offense as well. But we haven't seen him rolled out successfully in different places yet.
No, and he's someone that, like I just mentioned, so interesting that at his size, he's like 5'11", 190 pounds. He's not too much smaller than Stephon Diggs, and he primarily played on the outside. That I was excited that there was some talk in the offseason about, hey, is this too redundant of an offense? Are they just slot receivers? Do they have anyone that can win on the perimeter? Curtis Samuel can. You do not have to be 6'3" and 215. And even if you think that's the way that you have to win on the boundary, it's not working for this Bills offense right now. To throw back shoulders and just hope that that's going to be the way that you methodically move the ball down the field, that's not going to necessarily work in the NFL, and it hasn't worked so far. So I think to keep the package there of using him in those gadget-type ways is fine, but he could be someone, too, where Curtis Samuel, early in a game, not just on a screen where they're flying downhill, but on a drag route, on a quick slant, just getting him the football early in a more traditional wide receiver role, whether it's from the outside or the slot where there's so much space for him to operate, I think will be key to helping this offense get back to where it can be in terms of efficiency with Josh Allen as the quarterback.
Head coach Sean McDermott is on the podium speaking to reporters right now. Let's go on over to him.
Okay, Tough game. I thought our guys did a great job coming back. Coaches made good adjustments. Just not enough in the end, and that's on me. The end of game situation on offense, we're in a tough situation. 3 timeouts. They were holding 3 timeouts. I got a good field goal kicker. We needed to run the clock and move the chains, and that's on me. We didn't do that there, and that's my fault.
Sean, were you on board with the 3 play calls, the 3 passes in that situation?
I'm not going to get into that. I don't think that's relevant right now, Sal. Overall, again, that's on me, and so we just got to do a better job. I got to do a better job in that situation.
Is that a situation where if you throw it once, you're going to throw it 3 times? Or if you run it once, you're going to run it 3 times, because even if you leave them with 1 timeout, that's all they needed in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about holding 3 timeouts, where we were, they've got a really strong leg field goal kicker. We knew that. There's a potential, if the situation goes 3 straight runs, you're running 6 seconds off potential each time, and you're maybe in a similar situation, So either way, we got to do a better job, and that starts with me. 100%.
Is there something to the idea, though, that if it's going to go one way or the other, have it go one way or the other with 17 with the ball in his hands?
I love Josh with the ball in his hands. I do. And, again, efficient offense was the right approach there, and I didn't have us do that. And, so again, we learned from that. Tough situation. They're holding 3 timeouts, like I said. They got a good field goal kicker, and you go back and forth, and hey, I probably should have run it on the first play and just said, hey, where are we now? Either way, we're probably going to have to move the chains 1 time, right, to not give them a chance. But again, those are situations, and that's on me.
Last about not taking the 10-second runoff when he's ground.
We did, yeah, we did, and again, we talked about it after the game, and you don't know where that punt's going to land. If the punt goes in the end zone, we're at the 20 and we got a chance, right? So, or do they, because of their kicker, do they hang on and run the clock down and try and do something on the last play? So, again, situational football. So just, again, that's on me, and I thought we had opportunities in the game. I really did. I thought the defense with the guys that were playing out there really battled out there, and just overall, not enough production on first down as an offense, not enough third down, really manageable third downs to convert and move the chains and keep the pressure on their defense. And so we got to do a better job there.
Why do you feel like the passing game wasn't clicking today?
I don't know. I'll have to look at the film, Joe. I just feel like overall maybe we're too much down the field. I thought some of the getting the ball out, I think it was some in the second quarter, maybe some in the third as well. I thought that was effective for us, and it just seemed like maybe we were looking down the field. I don't know. I got to look at the film and just feel. We talked about it at halftime, and we knew first down wasn't good for us. And then when you talk about third down, 3 of 14 with the average yards to go, 8 yards plus, that's not healthy.
To Joe's point, you had 18 targets to your wide receivers, just 4 catches. Everybody knew with Khalil out that it was going to be an opportunity for somebody to step up. How troubling is it that you didn't see any of that production kind of made up for it?
Yeah, I would have hoped for more, honestly. I'm sure those guys feel the same way.
The last scrimmage play before the field goal, it looked like the defense was confused. There was nobody in the field defenses. What happened there?
Yeah, what we had was we were trying to go nickel defense, and Dorian was on the side. We didn't have the communication we needed right there, and so because of that, he was late onto the field and getting the call in that situation.
Sean, was there a common thread when they were able to convert a lot of 3rd and 6 plus today?
On their side, yeah. We had a mental on one of the third downs. I think it was 3rd and 5 in the first quarter that led to their first score. And then they did some good things just with making some good throws, and I thought we made some plays defensively when we needed to make them, and the guys battled. And we've got to look at those third downs overall. And when you get a team in a third down, you got to win those situations.
Sean, back-to-back weeks offensively, first half struggles, get things going third quarter. Have those slow starts been more about what you guys have not been doing, or more of maybe what your opponents have?
I'll know more again when I have a better look at the film, John. I think overall, I feel like, to your point, we've been a little bit off our game from what we executed in the first 3 games. And so that's when I get a chance to turn the film on, that's what I'm going to be looking for.
When you look at how the game finished, it seems pretty clear that after the turnover with the 15, not catching the touchdown. I mean, that would have probably changed the outcome of the game.
Opportunities. Again, we I think we had 2 takeaways. I know we got the ball, I think in the first quarter, we had a 3-and-out, got the ball to maybe the minus 49, plus 49 for us, almost 50 yards. Just opportunities overall. I thought there were some opportunities. That being said, I thought our offense came back in the second half and battled. And so, again, just not enough overall as a team. The punt return before half was 3 points. Their punt return. So all of it adds up when you're in that tight of a game.
In the first half, there was that catch by Dalton that, did you think it was ruled incomplete? Did you think about challenging that?
I did, yeah, and the information I got, it's, on that side, I didn't get a replay, and the information I got was that the ball had hit the ground. So that's what we went with.
On 2 tough ones on the road, another one coming up.
Yep.
Where are your guys now? Where do you think everybody is now after the 2 tough ones like this?
Yeah, they're down. There's no moral victories. I did like how they battled. To battle back after getting down like we did. Got a lot of young guys out there, in particular on the defensive side, playing and battling, giving us great effort on all 3 phases, really. So, the margins in the NFL are slim, and we got to continue to work to improve ourselves, get some guys healthy at some point here. I think that would help, and yet that's not an excuse. We got to find ways to pull these out.
Sean, you had Josh was 9 of 30 tonight. You talked about missed opportunities. You had Mack a couple of times early, Dalton maybe once over the middle. Do you feel like he's trusting what he's seeing right now, and just how would you assess his overall performance tonight?
You're talking about Mack or Josh? Josh. Yeah, I'm sure he wants that throwback that you referenced, Jay, and Josh is a great player. So, take the ball in Josh's hand anytime, and the 4th and 5 that we went for, it was a great throw, great catch, great run after catch by Keon. So Josh is a warrior, man. He got, took a pretty good hit out there and came back for his team and his teammates. All right, thanks, guys.
Bills head coach Sean McDermott saying that the team has been off of their game the last 2 games. He was happy about how the team as a whole fought back and tied things up in the 4th quarter, but then heading into the last couple drives, not so happy about the management putting that on himself, saying that he has to do a better job, whether it's communication to the defense or clock management on offense. Chris, what were your takeaways from what McDermott had to say?
Yeah, just from right off the bat, that was obviously going to be the first question, like how they handled the under 1 minute situation there to be no timeouts inside your own 10 with, and throw the football, that he took all the ownership of that. There was no finger pointing at Josh Allen or Joe Brady. He certainly mentioned that he understood the situation. It wasn't though he was confused or didn't know that they didn't have timeouts or the situation. But Sean McDermott really took that, and I think that's important for a head coach, especially early on in the season when there's so many new parts, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, to take that accountability 100% on his shoulder. So besides everything else, it was kind of obvious that, that Josh Allen missed some throws that he probably wants back. The receivers probably want more. And to the end of the game situation, I think was the most important thing for him to answer directly.
The Bills are now 3-2 on the season. We'll see if they can fix things in this long week that they'll get before their 3rd straight away game. The next one, Monday Night Football against AFC East rival New York Jets. We'll see how that one plays out. We're going to say goodnight for Chris. I'm Maddy Glab. We will see you all next week.